Hello everyone. So it's currently rainy here in Guam. Today we'd like to talk about the trappings of ambition, the cycle of ambition, and the dangers of aspiring to be world class. For a brief background, I come from the medical field. I am a medical doctor. And for those of you who may or may not know, the training that comes with medicine is long and quite grueling. So usually you have 4 years of pre-medical school, that's a college or university degree, and then you have 5 additional years of medical school. Well, some would call it 4 years, but realistically speaking, it's 5 years because the last year internship, it's like an on-the-job training, an OJT. After graduating medical school, of course, you have to be board certified by your country as a licensed and regulated physician. And after you pass that, you are officially a general practitioner, a GP. In most countries, and in the country where I come from, if you want to be a specialist, such as an internist, a pediatrician, a radiologist, you have to undergo further training, more years of training. And the number of years would vary depending on the specialty. For example, if you want to be a general internist, that's 3 years. Pediatrics is 3 years. Radiology is 4 years. Surgery is 5. The longest ones include neurosurgery, unsurprisingly. That's 6 years. And so on. And then, after you finish residency, which is the training for being a specialist, and after you pass the requisite specialist exams, you can continue and become a sub-specialist. Some doctors would call it a super specialist. And that's called fellowship. Fellowship, again, is a number of years of training again. 1 to 2 years of training to be a sub-specialist. So, a relatable example of that would be for internists. After they become a general internal medicine specialist, they can do fellowship to be a cardiologist, because cardiology is under internal medicine. A cardiology fellowship is an additional 3 years. And you can even take it way further. You can become a sub-specialist or a super specialist. For example, after you officially become a cardiologist, you can further specialize in echocardiography. Echocardiography is basically an ultrasound of the heart's structure and its function, its pumping. An additional number of years for echocardiography. I believe it's an additional year. So you can count the years. That's more or less at least 2 decades of training. And us in the medical field, in the country where I come from, in East Asia, there's a common practice that if you want to be really prestigious, if you want to be renowned, you have to take further training abroad. Specifically, if you can, in Western countries. Further training meaning a further fellowship or further specialist certificate courses in the United States, in Canada, and so on. So this cycle of betterment, this cycle of training it's of course good for you as a doctor, and of course theoretically for the patient, because your future patients are assured that you really know your stuff. But this further pursuit of ambition, of excellence, also has the personal and societal drawback of insatiability. Meaning you'll never be satisfied with what you already have and who you already are. This is good in itself, the pursuit of further specialization, of further training, of further bettering yourself. But the doctor, or the person, to speak in general terms, must also be aware that his or her worth is intrinsically not tied to what he or she has already achieved. Just because he or she has spent decades bettering, honing his or herself, doesn't mean that he or she is better than people who have not done the same thing or pursued the same route. There's a great deal of self-vigilance that has to be present here. Because personally, I've seen it. And it's actually more common than the exception. People, medical professionals, who have spent their whole lives pursuing these things, these trainings, these advancements, etc. To put it bluntly, they end up being the most unpleasant, the most entitled people one could ever meet. It's because they feel like all the things, all the adornments and awards they have gathered through the years, all the years they've spent training, have entitled them to a certain set of behaviors, have entitled them to behave a certain way. And so there's nothing intrinsically good or bad about pursuing these things, about honing oneself. Of course, it's neither intrinsically good nor bad. It has no intrinsic moral value, of course. But one has to stay vigilant, to keep one's feet planted firmly on the ground, so that one does not equate his or her worth and the worth of others with what they have achieved and the things which they have accrued. That's it for today, and I'll see you again in our next video. Goodbye.